How you doing, everyone? Thank you for coming. This is the Pathfinders podcast, and today's special guest, as it will be for a little while, is Becky Lee, who's an expert in Hermes Trismegistus scene of the Kybalion. And this is something that I've studied a lot over the last years. How about you, Becky?
It was one of the first really spiritual books that I read when I started my path. Other than I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, and being raised with the Bible is something that's your book of rules. You go more. I always knew there was something more to life than that. And then when the Hermetic principles like presented themselves to me, I dug deep in it, and it's like, wow, paired with the laws of the universe, you're unstoppable when you can bring these into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are aspects that I've been really studying since not 2019, I guess, was when I first started diving into it. And yeah, it's an ongoing, ever deepening exploration because even at the beginning of this book, it talks about this being the laws of the universe. Um, and we're not going to get them in a lifetime, but it's powerful to see just how effective they are and how they tie into all that other stuff. How long I've been searching for stuff my entire life, and so much of it is tied into this.
It really is. And I love that you brought that up because every time, you go back and look and read the Hermetic principles,
Mm.
you almost have a new like vision with them. Like I find when I go back now versus when I first started, I see them in a different light because I have more understanding of how to work with them. At the beginning, you're sort of like, oh man, like this doesn't make any sense, or maybe it does make sense. But when you can really start to adapt them and bring them into your life, it's like, wow, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I got together with Becky. This is for general populace. Got together with Becky a little while ago talking about this stuff, and we decided to put together a bit of a series talking about this. And so what we wanted to do was just at least start with the first one. Maybe we'll get to the second one, but just dive in so that this is truly educational for everyone and gives people food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super powerful, just, sit back and listen. And, when I teach people these types of principles into their life, I always say, don't worry about remembering everything because our subconscious mind's recording everything. And the beautiful thing about podcasts, you can go back and listen to them again in 6 months and pick up more information from them that you may have missed the first time around.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm excited to dive in, and the first principle is the principle of mentalism. So in this book, the Kybalion, they say that all is mind, that the universe is mental. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, let's start there.
Well, the first time I read that, it made me laugh because I'm a goofball. I'm like, yep, the universe is pretty mental looking back on my life. It's got a good sense of humor. But it's so true. Like if we think we don't realize our true innate powers, right? And the law of mentalism is bringing you back to yourself. Everything is mental projection. Everything is your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions that run through your thoughts projected on a screen in front of you, like you're at the movies. And what it's trying to teach you, like in my layman's terms, and the way that I see the law of mentalism is, no one to change but self, no thoughts to change but your own self internal dialogue. So if you're constantly having negative thoughts, negative talk about yourself, thinking negative things about other people, and you're seeing that come into fruition on the movie screen in front of you, if you're at the movie, would you go up to the screen and try to start changing something on the screen if you don't like what's going on in the movie? No, you'd want the movie to be rewritten so it can reproject it onto the screen. So I may have gone a little off there and I apologize, but that's how I envision the law of mentalism. And when we really, really dig into it and see it for what it is, we realize that we're all these droplets of mental energy in the multiverse. We are telepathic. We are always connected through our thoughts. and on different planes of existence. This is how psychics tune in. This is how intuitives tune in. This is how animals in the wild can tune in and, sense danger coming before it's even there. It's the law of mentalism.
I want to go back a step further, actually, because this is not a fiction. Yeah, this is, it's very easy to look at the way this is phrased and say, oh, yeah, but science doesn't back that up. But it actually does, because it depends on how deep you want to dive here. But I really feel like, and I say this at the risk of offending even you, Becky, because I understand that you're a scientist, yeah, but if we look at this aspect of so the physical, right? It's solid, yeah, and that's kind of what we're taught for most people in the beginnings of science. So it's solid, uh, we can knock it, all of that. And then when we get to physics, we start taking this apart and realize that actually that's some sort of illusion, and that we have these spaces and then these physical things. But they're somehow, if we get smaller and smaller, they're made up of parts. And then if we get smaller and smaller, those parts are made up of energy. And then if we get smaller and smaller and we get to the quantum space, we really get to see that not only is the things that seem solid illusory, but those things that seem empty are actually full. And we start getting into this. The quantum physics has really come such a long way in this space. And so what we're left with is that it is just energy, yeah, all of it. And so the very fact that we're having this conversation, is it your imagination? Is it my imagination? Do you know what I mean? Like it's really playing out at that level that really we have nothing to base what they're talking about in terms of science and all of that. Um, uh, Together as any sense of reality. There's no sense of reality to that. So then what we're left with is, what are we perceiving? Yeah, what are you perceiving? What am I perceiving? Are you just here to spill out those ideas and help me ground this? Or am I just, do you know what I mean? Like we have this interaction, but it is so energetic at every level. And so when we get to this place where we go, okay, all is mind, the universe is mental, it's really this notion of how it reflects back what we put out. And that's where it's the very beginning, I think, of knowing that changes everything.
I love that. Like you voiced that so eloquently. And you got into you sort of brushed on the quantum entanglement type of thing, right? It's like we're producing these energetic forms through thought and like vibration of our voices right now. How did we come together to work together? Well, it's through the law of mentalism on some plane, like attracts like, and you're always interacting and going in where you're meant to be. And it all comes back to that first law. It's like if you're driving down the street, say if you're you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you notice everything just starts going wrong for you that day. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Somebody, you're thinking illy about your partner or your kids, and then they do something to piss you off. Well, it's because you're thinking those thought forms and you're sending that energy out there. And this is why, when we work with the law of mentalism and you really become grounded in your beingness and understanding your thought energy and where you are. And, we're all humans. I have days where I feel very off and I feel grumpy still, even, and so never, you know, be mad at yourself for that, but learn how to pick yourself out of it to redirect those mentalism thoughts and have, you know, positive thoughts waves going out there so you can attract more positive circumstances back to your like 3D reality. That's the beautiful part of it, because it is grounding that. It's utilizing this beautiful energy that's all around us all the time and pulling it in through us and channeling it out. That's what the law of mentalism is. by utilizing these thoughts with source energy and you're flowing it out all around you, you're going to attract that back. And I love that you explain that so well. So thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. So this is interesting because our proposition to work together in this space is that you're so grounded and you want to land everything, whereas I tend to take people out. Um, and my clients are all wanting to go further and further. So between the two of us, and I guess in service of me, how would you go about grounding that into this life, right? What are your top three tips to just really land this notion of being able to change what you're thinking about, that sort of thing, so that you start attracting in noticeable ways?
Yeah, you just have to become aware. Number one, aware of your nervous system. So you brought up, we see things as we see them, not as they are. So
Mm.
when we have layers of trauma or experiences that cloud our perception of what is, we need to be able to like pull those layers out, like peeling an onion, so we can see more clearly for the truth in what's actually going on. Because this is my first tip. It's like there can be 30 people in a room and somebody says something, everybody's going to perceive it differently or see it differently. Some people might be crying or offended because of it, because of their experience. The other person might think it's hilarious, and other people may not even it might not even register in their mind because it's not part of their psyche. So number one is being aware of your nervous system and your triggers. That's the first one. So as you're flowing energy through and your thought forms, number two, you pair that with being aware of the thoughts going on in your head. That was one of my biggest things that I had to overcome. I had very negative internal dialogue. And, we talk about the ego, and that's the ego trying to protect you from, it's like your fear. It's your fear being like, don't do that. You're dumb. You're stupid. You can't do that. You're never going to amount to anything. And it's like, be aware of those types of thoughts and turn them into, not an egotistical way, but things like, I'm amazing. People like me. People, I love loving people, just things like that. And starting to serve, going into a life of more service based than taking, needing from people. So number one, be aware of your nervous system. Number two, pair that with being aware of your thoughts. Number three, being connected to the earth. I do like to land things. I'm like an airplane. I like to come down to ground and fuel up so I can go fly back up there. Being grounded. We are no good to ourselves or service to anybody if we're not grounded in our beingness. We need that grounding cord. We need to touch the ground. Things need to be tangible to be able to explain them and share the energy. We are a circuit. The law of mentalism, channeling that energy. We cannot channel it properly unless we're a full circuit. And you have to be plugged into the ground to be a full circuit. It's like wiring in our house. If it's not grounded, you're not going to get power out of it. You're going to feel drained, depleted, depressed, anxious. Ground yourself, you know? So number one, nervous system. Number two, thought patterns, because they're energy, they're electric energy. Number three, grounding. How about you?
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, I just want to touch upon you saying that we would all perceive things differently, because I just think that's so true. Everything that we're taught, we come to perceive in our own way. We have these things operate as a filter. And so, that notion of quantum entanglement, and I regularly do with clients do an intuitive process where we tune in, and I can do this. Isn't intuition in terms of, oh yeah, I get my tarot cards out, and then there's some. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can just sit down and start directly channeling whatever's going on for them. I can go for a couple of hours if it needs to, and it's really specific. And I think that is entering the space before perception. And so, but not many people know how to do that, and it's very difficult to do. It's kind of like just touching upon that other reality before you have to enter back into the real world. And so there's so many people out here who are really into what their perception is, and then they're taught that that perception is real, but it's not. It is just illusory. And so I really get this. There's a couple of beautiful ways to move past that, but everyone has it, right? That's why you go to this um, party room, yeah, whatever it is, whatever you called it, and some people will think this, and some people will think that, and I think that there's huge gift in being able to know what you think, but also what happens before that. What is true, because the illusion of everything that you think in that space is an illusion, right? That's the whole point of it. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that because it is a huge gift to be able to see through that. And you can do that with training. It's not a matter of tarot cards or whatever. It's just it's in us all. But I think going the other way, because you're grounding, and I think that's perfect for this conversation. And I'm totally out there. So it's that question of knowing. This is the thing, knowing that we're all mind and that the universe is mental, right? But we are, even that is somehow at this point separate. Yeah, that the universe is there and we're down here or whatever. Lots of people go to this place. And I think it's really important if we can move to this place where we very slowly, gently begin to go, that is me. That there is us without any of that illusion. Yeah, that is us as the universe. And everything that we can do at that level and at every level between there, let's call that the top, and grounded here as far as we know, at the bottom. But all of those things exist all at once. We are at every level in every moment. So that's just this aspect, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. So it's really, I think, to make peace with being all of those layers at once. That is my only and top tip in this moment, because I really feel like as we come to see that, we are able to move ourselves into completely different spaces, not only as humans, which absolutely will change as well, but as a divinity, as God, as everything. And when we're in that space, what we can create, what we consider truth, is completely different, and it radically changes, I think, our perception of the world and how we are here.
Yeah, I love that. Like, you explain it so, I love the way you explain things, because you bring, like, they are a pair, but you bring them down to a very practical way of talking about them. And when you touched upon our perception, we have to realize, you said this, it's like we have to understand why we're perceiving things the way we're perceiving them. And that comes back to, it like ties in the nervous system. And I like to use, I love to talk in analogies. I always say, take our glasses off and clean them once in a while. Because if you're walking through life with the same pair of glasses on and you're getting mud and gunk and everything, what are you seeing? What are you perceiving? And then taking that to the point where if you're fixating on something, say if you're fixating on not being liked, or I walk in a room, people don't like me, or I make people mad all the time, which a lot of people do because they want to blame outside instead of taking accountability within. You're going to create that dichotomy in your life. You're going to create that self-fulfilling prophecy, because all is mind. You're sending those brain waves out to, telepathically to everybody around you. And that alone will change everybody's life. Anybody listening to this or watching this, I'm going to give you a little test for yourself.
Yeah.
Think of somebody that you have a really hard time with. We all have somebody in our life. And instead of sending malice and hateful thoughts towards them, send them love, and start thinking of them in your mind the way you want them to show up for you and the way you want to interact with them, whether it's they're gone forever, but I send them with love. Always send with love, because all is mine, and we want to create from love, not from hate or bitterness or anything like that. And then start seeing your relationship shift around you while doing that. And I know this is a little off topic, but it comes back to the law of mentalism. We create in our minds, and what we create in our minds, we will put up on the projector around us in our 3D reality.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great homework. And you know, I'm glad that you're here keeping a practical you know, flavor to this, because we you know, I can be very impractical if you like. But I really feel like there's something in that that you touched upon which was beautiful, and that is really to change the energy that we hold is really about just noticing what that energy is for us, you know. And I get this aspect in all of that, of, and so I'm going to present this back to you, of what's the difference between doing that for the sake of, you know, your holding your highest truth, and doing that because you think that it's going to get you something. Because lots of people go, oh, whatever, I hold them with love because I'm going to create something. Yeah. As opposed to, I hold them with love. It's a very different kind of aspect.
That is, and that's where the ego comes in and out. Holding somebody with love because you want something in return comes from that place of lack, and the place of not understanding that you're messing with the free. There's something called free will. I ultimately believe we hold all the free will within us for anything around us, but however, it has to be matched with the free will of the super, the super whatever is out there that is running everything. Because if we're going against that and we're manipulating, there's ways to manipulate energy that are for the highest good because we're helping the all, and there's ways to manipulate energy that's to serve the ego self. And that's what we don't want to do, because that, a lot of people will say that creates bad karma. I don't believe. I believe karma is also a self-fulfilling prophecy, and this can go down a rabbit hole as well. But we create excess potential because then we start thinking about it. Anybody who has a really pure heart, we've all had moments where we've manipulated something to get what we want. And, as a child, that's what kids do. That's how they learn to push boundaries. But as adults, we know this, and we know, I always say, as long as you're showing up to 100% of your potential and doing it for the highest good of all around you, it is okay. If you're outgoingly doing it to hurt somebody or get ahead of them or manipulate in a way that's not going to help them, it has to be helping everybody in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important, because it's really it's where the illusion kicks in that so many people don't get. They misunderstand. They are busy trying to get what they want, and they just think this is another way to get what they want, right? That illusion, or retraction, whatever you want to call that. That's what they're using it for, and I think it's a beautiful place to come to, where we step into the service, because that is operating immediately, that is already taking us from the higher. Yeah, we are operating from the higher. And this is where I wanted to touch upon, because, okay, when we move into the space of healing, right, this might be controversial, but when we move into the space of healing, there are so many of these, if you do this, you'll get that back. If you blah blah, you'll blah blah blah. That's one layer. Yeah. And it's like that. I'm glad that you brought up karma, because it's just one layer. Yeah. But there is a point where we can get to where we step in above that. And particularly, I love this, Hermes, Hermes Trismegistus talks about this, where it's all backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. If you've ever tried to get rich and ended up, getting poor and then rich and then poor, or loved and they're not loved, or all of that. It's all on that level. And when we go to this place, we don't need healing. There's a place in our spirit that knows it well, right? That doesn't need healing, that is whole, that is complete. And when we choose what we want from that place, from that higher, it's very, very different experience.
Yeah, I like to call that the 0 point. It's like the point between the masculine and feminine energies, the in breath and the out breath. It's that 0 point. It's the fulcrum on the pendulum. Because what happens in our day-to-day world is we're so attuned to emotional excesses that they become the norm. This is why I say the nervous system, come back to the nervous system. If you're attuned to a highly volatile relationship dynamic or a highly volatile anything dynamic in your life, you're going to be, swinging back and forth in your mind all the time. When things are calm, your nervous system and your mind are not going to know how to take it, and it's going to create drama in your life, whether you like it or not. So this is where, one of my healers, when I really dug in deep, he would always say, you are perfect, whole, and complete every step of your journey, every lifetime, everything. And you must begin to believe that. We get stuck in this never ending, I need to heal, I'm not healed, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, there's something wrong with me. Start believing that you're great. The mind, we can get into how the mind heals the body with this. It's like our brain waves are the pure essence of creation. Everything, like I look when I create music, it's not my brain that creates music. It's my brain tuning in to the 0 point and the channel. You open up that channel of flow. That's how artists create music. That's how artists create artwork. That's how healers and teachers create, healing. We channel. And when we let go of that excess potential, that resistance that's keeping that out, and open up the dam of the mental capacity, we allow the intuition and the source energy to flow through us in the most beautiful way that creates the most beautiful ideas. How often in the shower do you have like aha moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I have the best idea to do something? Or driving down the road when you're like in like that Zen state because you're in the zone driving. That's because you're in that flow, you're in that calm fulcrum, that in between. And I love that you brought that up because I always visualize a pendulum all the time when I see things. It's like love and hate are two opposites of the same pole. It's the same energy. Fear and excitement, same energy, opposite ends of the pendulum.
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's a real gift to be able to spot that out in the wild, if you like, how it plays out in our life, because it is one of those things that is it's produced as an influx of society, like mass media, all that sort of stuff. Um, to really be in the, oh, you must want this, but this is the opposite. You want to get away from that. And the nature is that is never going to give us what we truly want. And if we can just move into this space where there is no opposite, even if it's just for a minute, um, to move into that space where there is no opposite and really get a clear picture of that. And when you get a clear picture of that, I feel like what is actually created is what you're here for, your life purpose. And so that in itself is huge.
It is. And, when you get to that place, you are open to allow your intuition to guide you. You're open to receiving. You're open to the signs of the universe that come to you, whether in synchronicities or sounds or somebody saying to your face exactly the words you need to hear. These are the moments. I remember I had this really weird circumstance happen to me once. I was out at a bar. This is when I was like in one of my darkest times, and I was with my girlfriends and I was quite intoxicated. And we were there and we walked in, we went to go listen to music and go dancing. And this lady starts pointing at us from across the room. And my girlfriend's a lot more gregarious than I am. And she goes over and talks to this lady. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to this lady. Like, I want to go have fun with my friends. And this lady's like, I saw you walk in And I'm like, what? I had super bleach blonde hair then. And, I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
sure. And I was very cynical at that time in my life. And she's like, you need to get out of your own way. She's like, you have so many angels around you. I've never seen so many angels around one person. You are destined for greatness. Get out of your own way. Stop being a jerk. And I was just like, oh. And it took me a couple years still to really figure it out. But it's those words have stuck with me. And I was just like, wow, there's got to be something more to this existence, than what is here right now.
Yeah.
And that was a sign in synchronicity. And I actually took that one to heart and I started following it. And it took time, but
Yeah.
it's led me down some beautiful paths.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that that is probably going to keep people occupied for a week. Let's meet again next week and do the second principle. Let me just
I
say though, I love that you just talked about time just briefly because the same with time. I think this is really important. The same with that principle of, moving from this space to that, and but this is higher. We can also move to the place where it's all happening now in this moment. Yeah. And it's true that this world is what it is in terms of time and space and illusion and all of that. But actually, if you move to that space, things can speed up dramatically too. So I think that I'd like to offer that, that we don't need healing and everything's good to go now.
love that. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you to everybody who listens and supports the Pathfinders podcast. There's so much great information hidden in these gems.
Yeah, absolutely. And your Facebook group is growing so much.
It's,
Um,
it's insane not to use like a negative. It's insane in a good way. I'm just every day I'm like, whoa, like momentum is real. This is like the time thing. Like I've always had the word momentum in my mind. And it's like once you understand that and you start to work with those energies, you do become the alchemist and you can like transmutate tons of energy. It's really cool.
Beautiful. Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you next week and we'll dive into the second one.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Mike.